and our next speaker between the co-chairs of the Disability Labour Forum. I want to introduce to you both Fran Springfield and Kathy Bole, who are on the National Policy Forum, but are co-chairs of Disability Labour. So over to both of you, Fran and Kathy.
Claudia, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us to be able to talk this evening. I just want to pick up on that whole issue of no recourse to public funds. I live in Lambeth. I've been part of one of the groups supporting people through a mutual aid COVID group. And what some of the saddest stories that I have had to deal with in the last few weeks are women who've been in that situation. They are women who are facing destitution, they're women facing poverty, they are women very often also with disabilities, very often with post-traumatic stress disorder because of what they've been through in their own country. We were looking after two women in particular who, having got here with partners, those partners actually were then violently abusing them. So we were in the situation having to sort out all of that and somehow finding safe accommodation for them, which was incredibly difficult in the current climate. So I'm really feel that the issue of no recourse to public funds must not exist. We cannot have this any longer. It is just, you know, it's a stain on our society, and it should not be happening. But back to talking about the things that I was actually asked to talk about. And I just want to start by making it clear that we had a meeting with Jonathan Reynolds yesterday, and he wanted to make it clear to us, and therefore I want to make it clear on this call. What he said was we should always support those who want to work while ensuring those who can't are able to live in dignity and comfort. There will always be part of a social security system for those people who need it, whether they have paid in or not. I'm going to talk about three particular issues. One of them is the WASPy women, partly because I'm a WASPy woman and this is something that's affected me. The policy that came out during the general election was just amazing. I listened to that and I thought, oh my gosh, if only, if only, if only. And of course, sadly, it didn't happen. And WASPy women mustn't be forgotten. They must not be left behind. We have had such injuries to our homes, to our working life, to all sorts of problems that have occurred because we've had to work these extra 6 years. For me, it spent an extra 6 years on perilous benefits and being constantly reassessed by the DWP. And none of that should have been happening. Whatever we do, even if it's we only find a scheme which was 50% as good as the one that we put together, we've got to do something. The next piece of thing I want to talk about is social care. We all know that social care is in crisis. There was far too much of a push to reduce care hours and move young disabled people into care. Just at the beginning of the pandemic, I got a phone call via the COVID group from a young disabled lady living around the corner from me. She's 31. She has complex medical conditions, and there had been a difficulty with sorting out some of her care hours, and the social worker's view was that, oh, we'll put her in a nursing home during the COVID crisis. She was terrified, as was I. And despite the fact I was starting lockdown, I actually went round to advocate for her and to ensure that she was not carted out through her front door without her consent, because that was almost what they were threatening to do. I'd never been in that situation with a local authority trying to do that to somebody who was so young. It was utterly horrendous. But it shows the way that disabled people are treated, which is why everything about the care system as it is now has to change. We cannot continue as we are. The whole issue of people being transferred straight from hospital into care homes, where they knew perfectly well that those residents had COVID. There was no question about that. They dumped them into care homes because it was a clear and easy way of making sure that there were more beds in the NHS. And yet they failed to provide all the PPE for staff. My daughter is a manager in a care home. She lost 1/3 of her residents in 2 weeks. My daughter is also adopted. She is black. And my fear as a mum of a black child was, oh my God, what would happen if she gets this? I've spent the last few weeks terrified, absolutely terrified that she too might catch this. Because the whole issue of why people of ethnic backgrounds are getting COVID worse than everybody else has to be looked at, has to be properly investigated, and has to have some money, if necessary, put into the health service and put into those people's lives to make sure that never ever happens again. I'm well aware that the government report did not contain the recommendations, which I have been assured were written. They were just removed before publication. And I do think that's something that we need to put a huge pressure on the government to do something about. Local authorities currently pay the lowest possible money they can afford to put somebody into a care home. That means that care homes are run on a shoestring. It means that their staff are badly paid, very often under the national minimum wage. They will very often find themselves into a situation where they can't be unionised because the employers will not consider that. It will make life really difficult for any staff member who tries to join a union. And I know that from the experience of my own daughter, who's been well brought up and knows to join a union despite her boss's horrendous attitude to her because she did so. But of course, the other issue about keeping costs down means that many care home owners cut corners. They will employ people who may not have appropriate residency papers, but that of course means that they can employ them almost as slave labour, paying them, any little amount of money they want, making them work for as long as hours as they want them to work. And that has to stop. There is no other way of describing it other than slave labour. And we should not be condoning that with public money. We have to have a national care service. But for disabled people, more importantly, we have to have a national independent living service. What is that and how will it work? It will work on a national basis in the way that the National Independent Living Fund did before it was abolished. And for those of you who don't know much about National Independent Living Fund, it was a nationally controlled sum of money that was given to severely disabled people who needed help and support to live in their own home. It was totally separated out from any social services funding in local authorities, so it was purely government funded. And we were assured when the NLF finished that that money would be transferred to local authorities and would be ring-fenced for us. Well, you can guess what happened to that. Nothing at all. The money got dispersed all over the place, and disabled people have spent the rest of the time fighting to get the minimum hours of care that we need. So how do we resolve this? Well, we go back to having a national care service with national guidelines as to how much care somebody should be having, so that it can't be done purely on a local authority budget. We need to have disabled people involved at every stage of that process. Some London boroughs are really doing a good job of this already. Go to Hammersmith and Fulham and look at their system and then transform that into every local authority in the country. They have disabled people at the start. We had a whole consultation. I was living in H&F at the time. We had a consultation for disabled people asking us what we wanted and how we wanted the service to run. It has now started the commissioning process. It is run by 2 disabled people who were part of that process, and they will be managing everything from there on in, with other disabled people guiding and supporting, and making sure that everything is focused on giving us independence. Because that's what we want. We need to be able to live independent lives so that we can actually do things like campaigning. and not just be stuck at home. You know, there are lots of us with lots of skills and lots of knowledge, and we want to be able to use that and use that constructively. And we can only do that when we are the guardians of our own care, which is why we have to have a national independent living service. And I'm going to leave it there and hand over to Kathy to talk about mental health.
Thanks, Fran, and thanks, Claudia, for having us. I think one of the biggest things that this pandemic has taught us is that everybody can be afraid, everybody can be frustrated, everybody can be fearful. And what is disturbing, I think, is the fact that because of the lack of investment in mental health provision all across the country, we are finding that services, even before the pandemic arrived, were starting to fail. And here, where I'm in Suffolk, we have the pleasure of having a mental health service that's gone into needs improvement 3 times because there's no other alternative about what you do with it. And what I'm seriously concerned about is the fact that what will happen to people as soon as some people start going back to work, other people will continue to be in this lockdown situation, and they won't have the support when it comes time for them to come back into mainstream life if they can. They won't have the support to do so because I think we are on course for a tsunami of mental health issues, whether it's based on the situations around the inequality with Black people and how people are being discriminated against, and all of the hate that has surrounded that whole situation. I think what we have to remember is individuals will be dealing with mental health issues for far into the future. And we need to have a way to support each other through this. Now, we need to figure out how to get tools to people and teach people how they can support themselves and their families through the crises that we will continue to see. The amount of despair that people felt because Jeremy wasn't elected at the general election, and the idea that people were concerned about the new leadership and what that meant for the transformational policies that we had put in the manifesto, whether that will leave us behind, and that a lot of the good work and important work that had been done will be undone. And that in itself causes trepidation. The not knowing what's going to happen about the leaked report and the bashing of one side of labor against another side of labor and witch hunts and all that kind of stuff. It's all adding to this really, really dystopian view that we are starting to get through social media, through the reports we hear about protests and reprisals. One of the things that's gotten very, very clear from my neck of the woods, I'm a county counselor at Suffolk County, and we just had a couple of counselors being identified as propagating and spreading racist views with the death of George Floyd. So I think that all of these different circumstances are actually going to lead us to need to put into place a better system that's properly funded and recruitment in order to bring in people who understand mental health. And we need people to stand behind each other and try to be as supportive as they can. I think this goes to also our representatives, because as things get worse, the front line for government is going to be our MPs and our councillors, who are going to be dealing with the aftermath of cuts and unemployment and difficulties getting benefits, and people are going to start to cut back on their expenses based on whether or not they have enough money to live day to day, and the use of food banks and all the rest of it. The fact is that people will not have the money to go out and get somebody to help them work through the issues. And I think a lot of people, part of me said when the pandemic hit, well, at least people will realize what it's like to be a disabled person and having to live in their homes and not get involved in a lot of things. And we do it from our homes often. And I thought, well, a lot of disabled people will have this isolation thing in a good, will be okay with it. But the longer it goes on, the more unokay everybody is, especially when people are having to rely on places like Sainsbury's, which everybody has a really bad feeling about, who is on some kind of disability benefits, because they were shopping people to the DWP, and then you're having to give them your information, or information's being transferred to them in order to get you your shopping in. And the things about people who were not shielding, who couldn't get their shopping in, all of this stuff is eroding the mental health of every single person, except possibly the Tories. The compassion and the support we want to give to each other, we have to struggle so hard to continue doing that for each other and not biting each other's heads off. We just need to support each other. We need to be getting a system of mental health where everybody is supported to deal with those issues and feel supported.